Tempest in Teyvat, Rimuru's Elemental Odyssey by KabirSingh808. Falling into the unknown. As the group followed Halfdan deeper into the ruins, the air around them grew heavy with an eerie atmosphere. The upside-down city loomed above and below them, its architecture defying the natural laws of gravity. Ancient structures, weathered by time, stood suspended in the air, while luminescent blue and violet crystals pulsed faintly, casting an otherworldly glow across the ruins. Upon reaching the summit, a strange sight greeted them. A large contraption, seemingly built by the abyss, stood tall in the center of the platform. Its intricate gears and metal framework shimmered with traces of abyssal energy, giving off a faint purple glow. But what caught Rimuru's attention the most was the massive upside-down pool of water suspended in the air, its surface rippling despite being completely motionless. Rimuru took a step forward, gazing at the pool with fascination. "Just look at this," he muttered, his golden eyes reflecting the spectacle before him. "Yeah, it looks so cool," Paimon exclaimed, her tiny wings fluttering excitedly. Rimuru chuckled. "Definitely. I'd love to build something like this in my world too, but..." His expression turned serious as he pointed at the pool. "The more important thing is that this is the very thing weakening the curse." Aether's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Dainsleif nodded in agreement. "Indeed, he is right. This upside-down water pool is actually suppressing the effects of the curse." Paimon, still processing the information, asked, "Then shouldn't we use this water to cure all the people of Kyanria?" Dainsleif sighed. "Not possible. While it reduces the curse's effects, it does not provide a cure. The only ways to fully cure the curse are the three methods Rimuru mentioned when we first met in the tavern in Mondstadt." Aether nodded, recalling the conversation. "I see." Rimuru turned his attention to the contraption, noticing a peculiar purple stone embedded at its core. The energy it emitted was unmistakably abyssal in nature. His gaze sharpened as he asked Ciel in his mind, "Analyze it." "Already in progress, Master." Ciel's voice responded instantly. Rimuru smirked slightly. "Always ahead of me, huh?" As he continued his observations, he murmured, "Well, regardless of what this means, this supports my theory that people from this world can actually defy the heavenly principles." Paimon, tilting her head, asked, "Yeah, but I still wonder, who do you think is strong enough to go against the heavenly principles?" At this question, both Aether and Dainsleif turned their attention to Rimuru, curious about his answer. Rimuru crossed his arms, his expression thoughtful. "There are quite a few people with the potential to challenge them, but if I had to point out someone who stands at the top of that list, I'd say, our traveler here." Aether blinked in surprise. "What?" Paimon gasped. "Huh?" Dainsleif, instead of reacting with shock, fell into deep thought. After a few moments, he murmured, I wouldn't say that's entirely impossible." Rimuru smirked. "See, even Dane agrees with me." Paimon, still in shock, flailed her arms. "But why? Is it because Traveler isn't from this world?" Rimuru nodded. "That's part of it, but more importantly, since Aether now has a soul corridor with me, I don't think there's anyone else in this world with more potential than him right now." Paimon's eyes lit up with realization. "Oh, I remember. I see." Dainsleif's expression immediately sharpened, his usually composed demeanor shaken. "What did you just say?" His voice was laced with urgency. "A soul corridor." Rimuru was about to avoid explaining when suddenly, a loud metallic clank echoed through the summit as the doors around them, previously sealed, slowly creaked open. From one of the doorways, Halfdan emerged once more. His glowing blue eyes flickered as he let out a series of unintelligible noises before turning around and silently walking away. Dainsleif narrowed his eyes. "He wants us to follow." Rimuru glanced at the others. "Then let's go." Aether, Paimon, and Dainsleif nodded in unison as they stepped forward, following Halfdan into the unknown depths of the ruins. As Halfdan silently led the group deeper into the ruins, the atmosphere grew heavier. The stone walls, damp and ancient, were illuminated by faint bioluminescent fungi clinging to the surfaces, casting an eerie blue glow. The sound of dripping water echoed through the passage as they carefully made their way downwards. The air was thick with a strange mix of decay and energy, an oppressive force that seemed to whisper of forgotten despair. Eventually, they reached the mouth of a cave, its entrance framed by jagged, broken stone as if time itself had clawed away at its structure. Halfdan came to a stop and turned to face them, his hollow, glowing blue eyes flickering with an emotion they could not decipher. Dainsleif, his voice steady but laced with a certain caution, spoke first. "Well then, let's go inside and take a look." The others nodded in agreement before stepping forward, their footsteps echoing against the cavern walls as they entered. The cave was vast, larger than any of them had expected, its interior bathed in an ominous light coming from glowing crystalline formations embedded in the walls. But what truly stole their breath away was the sight before them. Their eyes widened in shock. Dozens of hilichurls lay scattered throughout the cave. Some had already succumbed to the curse, their lifeless forms resting against the cold ground, while others were barely holding on, their bodies trembling as they clung desperately to what little life they had left. A hushed, sorrowful silence fell upon the group as they took in the tragic scene. Rimuru, frowning deeply, exhaled. "Well, that definitely is not something I was expecting." Dainsleif's gaze darkened, but his composure remained steady. "We can discuss this later. First, let's search the area." His tone was firm yet somber, urging them forward. The group nodded in agreement, dispersing slightly to investigate their surroundings. As they walked, they passed by fallen hilichurls, some frozen in what seemed to be their final moments of suffering. Though they were once seen as mere monsters by many, the truth behind their origins made this sight all the more tragic. Out of respect, Aether and Rimuru paused briefly near the lifeless ones, offering a silent moment of acknowledgement before moving on. Paimon, floating close to Aether, looked around with a mixture of sorrow and anger. "This is all so messed up," she murmured, her voice unusually subdued. Aether gave a slow nod. "Yeah." Rimuru, scanning the area with sharp eyes, let out a deep sigh. "Indeed. I just hope the heavenly principles have a reasonable explanation for this." Paimon turned to face him, her expression uncertain. "Are you going to judge them?" Rimuru remained silent for a moment, his gaze drifting over the ruins, before finally speaking. "Who can say?" His voice was calm, but there was an undercurrent of something more. "It will depend on the circumstances in the future. But if it comes to that, then, perhaps." He looked toward the ceiling of the cave, lost in thought. "Still, there's too little information about them right now. We'll wait and see." Paimon gulped nervously before hesitantly asking, "Ayan, what if they don't have a good reason?" Rimuru's lips curled into a faint smile, his golden eyes closing as he tilted his head slightly. "Well then, I suppose that will be the end for them and their rule." Though his face bore an expression of amusement, the air around him suddenly grew heavy. An invisible pressure seeped into the cave, making even Aether shift uncomfortably. Despite his seemingly casual words, there was an unmistakable hostility in his tone, an unspoken promise that if the heavenly principles were truly guilty of something unforgivable, he would not hesitate to tear them apart. Aether, noticing the change in his demeanor, furrowed his brows. "You seem a little angrier today than usual." Rimuru sighed, rolling his shoulders slightly as if shaking off a burden. "Well, these things remind me of some old memories from my world." Paimon gasped. "Wait, did something like this happen in your world too?" Rimuru shook his head. "No, but there was something similar." His expression darkened slightly before he quickly composed himself. "Let's save that conversation for later." He pointed toward Dainsleif, who had stopped a few paces ahead, his attention focused on something small resting against the stone floor. It was a flower. As Rimuru and the others reached Dainsleif, they noticed his gaze fixed on a single flower amidst the ruins. It was delicate yet strangely resilient, consisting of 5 petals, 4 white and 1 light blue. The carpels and stamens gleamed in a soft golden hue, untouched by the decay that surrounded it. The sight of it triggered a memory in Aether, his eyes widening as he stepped closer. "I know this flower," Aether murmured, his voice laced with surprise. Rimuru, arms crossed, nodded knowingly. "Yes, indeed. Isn't this the same flower Lumine was wearing when we met?" Paimon gasped, her tiny hands flying to her mouth. "Yeah, now that Paimon thinks about it, it's exactly the same." Dainsleif's fingers hovered just above the petals, his expression unreadable as he confirmed their thoughts. "This flower definitely belongs to her, and to Kyanria. It is our national flower, in Teyvat." His voice, usually steady, held a rare trace of sentiment as he continued, his words tinged with nostalgia and sorrow. "It once bloomed all over Kyanria. A symbol of our land, of our people. His gloved hand finally made contact with the petals, but instead of plucking it, he merely let it rest beneath his fingers. It would only last 2 weeks before wilting. But if you were to pluck one and take it out of Kyanria, the petals would stop growing and turn hard. Only when it finally returned to its home soil would the petals grow soft once more, and finally turn to dust. A silence followed his words, the weight of his explanation settling in their minds. Dainsleif exhaled softly. So the Teyvat is a symbol for a wanderer far from home, signifying the tenderness of the homeland. Rimuru observed the flower closely, his mind piecing things together. I see, so that's why it's still not withering, even after so long. Dainsleif gave a small nod in agreement. Rimuru, however, was not done thinking. He glanced toward Ether, something clicking in his mind. But, how did Kyanria have this flower in the first place? His gaze sharpened. Isn't this flower from your home world? The one where you and Lumine originally came from? Ether stiffened, the realization hitting him. Yes, you're right. His golden eyes reflected his thoughts racing at the implications. Which means, there were these flowers in Teyvat, but how? Rimuru tapped his chin, considering the possibilities. Maybe someone brought it over, from your world. Ether's eyes flickered with understanding. That could be possible. But that theory only led to more questions. Who could have brought such a flower to Teyvat? And why was it in Kyanria of all places? Rimuru turned toward Dainsleif once more, his curiosity deepening. Tell me, were these flowers always present in Kyanria? From the very beginning? Dainsleif hesitated for a moment before nodding. Yes, for as long as our recorded history goes, they were always there. Rimuru narrowed his eyes. Then, can you tell me who founded Kyanria? A heavy silence filled the cave. Dainsleif closed his eyes, as if searching through fragmented memories. After a long pause, he finally spoke. I don't quite remember. Paimon flailed her arms in disbelief. Huh, how can you not remember your own nation's founder? Dainsleif's expression darkened. It's not that I never knew, it's that I forgot. He placed a hand over his forehead as if trying to piece together the missing fragments of his past. The curse of immortality does not merely preserve the body, it degrades the mind over time. I have lost many things from my past, and this, perhaps, is one of them. Ether's expression turned serious as he processed this information. Then, he turned to Rimuru. So, what do you think? Rimuru crossed his arms, his gaze thoughtful. Just a theory, but what if someone from your world actually built Kyanria? Ether blinked in shock. What are you trying to say? Rimuru gestured toward Dainsleif. Just look at him. Ether and Paimon both turned toward Dainsleif, confused. Rimuru then asked the question that had been lingering in his mind. Are there many people in Kyanria who have blonde hair? Dainsleif, caught off guard, frowned slightly before answering. Not all, but there are a few. Rimuru's expression sharpened. Then what if those few were actually connected to your world? Ether's breath caught in his throat. Paimon, eyes wide, murmured, wait, are you saying that someone from Ether's world came here, planted the flowers, and then helped build Kyanria? Rimuru nodded. It's a possibility. Think about it, Kyanria was advanced, far beyond any other civilization in Teyvat. If it was built outside the influence of the gods, then who else could have provided the knowledge to create such a kingdom? What if the founders weren't originally from Teyvat at all? Ether's mind reeled. The thought had never occurred to him before, but it made sense. Kyanria's technology, their knowledge, their defiance against Celestia, it was different from anything else in this world. Ether clenched his fists. If Kyanria was truly founded by someone from his home, then it meant that the heavenly principles had not only destroyed an advanced civilization, they may have been responsible for severing an even greater truth. Paimon, rubbing her temples, muttered, this is making Paimon's head hurt. But it kinda makes sense. Rimuru gave a small smile. It's just a theory. But if it's true, then the history of this world is far more complicated than we thought. Ether took a deep breath, determination flickering in his golden eyes. Then we need to find out the truth. Rimuru glanced at Ether, who was still processing the implications of their discussion. Though, Rimuru continued, my theory could be completely wrong. Ether raised an eyebrow. Why do you say that? Rimuru crossed his arms, deep in thought. If Kyanria was truly built by someone from your world, then logically, the people of Kyanria should have had a longer lifespan, just like you and your sister. Ether considered this and slowly nodded. You have a point. That's why I called it a speculation, Rimuru shrugged. Nothing's certain until we have real proof. Everyone seemed to agree on that point. With that, Rimuru gestured forward. All right then, let's move on. Wait, Ether interrupted, stepping closer to the Teyvat. His golden eyes softened as he crouched down, reaching for the flowers. At least let me take some of these with me. Rimuru smiled. Go ahead. As Ether's fingers brushed against the delicate petals, however, his body suddenly stiffened. His golden irises trembled, his expression turning distant as if he were seeing something far beyond their current reality. Rimuru's brows furrowed. What's happening? Dainsleif's expression darkened. He might be experiencing the memories of his sister. Rimuru tilted his head slightly. Well, that certainly could be the case. For several tense moments, Ether remained frozen, unmoving, his breath shallow. Then, all at once, his body relaxed, and he exhaled softly as he began to move again. He straightened up, his eyes regaining focus. Rimuru immediately asked, "Are you okay?" Ether nodded, though his gaze was still distant. Dainsleif stepped forward. So, what did you see? Ether hesitated before answering. I saw them trying to use that upside-down pool, the one we saw at the summit of the upside-down city, to purify the curse. Dainsleif closed his eyes briefly before letting out a heavy sigh. Still the same as ever. Ether turned to him, his expression serious. Then, tell me, what do you think their chances of success are? Dainsleif didn't hesitate. His voice was cold, resolute. It is the height of foolishness. There is no chance, not even a single %. Ether's brows knitted together. Why? Dainsleif's deep blue eyes held an unreadable emotion as he explained. The curse inflicted by the gods is not something that exists within the normal laws of this world. It was cast from a higher reality, a level of existence beyond those afflicted by it. His fists clenched slightly. I have lived through it. I have endured it. I understand this curse better than anyone. His voice turned almost grim. They are no longer human. Trying to remove the curse by force will only bring greater suffering upon them. A heavy silence settled between them. Paimon, floating uneasily, muttered, well, you definitely have a lot to say about this. Rimuru and Ether both nodded in agreement. After a moment, Ether turned toward Rimuru. What do you think? Rimuru closed his eyes, recalling the upside-down ruins they had seen earlier. From what I observed, the contraption above definitely amplifies the effect of that upside-down pool. He opened his eyes, his gaze sharp. But it won't be able to purify the curse. Ether exhaled slowly. How much do you think it can amplify the effect? Rimuru shook his head slightly. I can't say for sure, but if I had to estimate, probably around 100 times. What? Paimon nearly fell out of the air. Rimuru nodded. Even then, it won't be enough to cleanse the curse. Paimon frowned. Then, does that mean nothing can remove the curse? She hesitated before asking, I don't want to sound rude, but, are you sure you can remove the curse if you get your powers back? Rimuru gave her a confident smile. Don't worry, Paimon, I know what I'm doing. But, what if they find out that you removed the curse? What if they come after you? Rimuru's eyes gleamed with amusement. Even if that happens, it doesn't change anything. Paimon tilted her head. Huh, why? Rimuru's smile widened slightly. Because those of us who have ultimate skills stand above the laws of the world. His voice was calm, yet filled with absolute certainty. And that includes the so-called higher reality this curse comes from. Dainsleif's gaze flickered slightly at Rimuru's words. Ether's expression turned thoughtful. Paimon crossed her arms. Are you sure about that? Even if the curse was created by someone way more powerful. Rimuru chuckled. Paimon, do you know why the central world is called the central world? Paimon blinked. Ah, well. Rimuru smirked. Because it is the center of everything. The very heart of existence. His voice took on a slightly amused tone. And the beings there, are at a level where, gods, of this world would be very weak. A heavy silence followed his words. Paimon sighed, rubbing her forehead. Well, that's good to know. Ether exhaled, his grip tightening around the Teyvat in his hand. He had come to Teyvat seeking a new home. And now, more than ever, he was determined to uncover the truth behind everything. Rimuru gave him a knowing look. Well then, shall we continue? As the group continued walking, they finally reached the end of the cave, where an opening led them to the upside-down city again. The ancient ruins hung eerily in the sky, their architecture defying gravity, as an eerie blue glow pulsed from the contraption embedded within the summit of the ruins. The air itself felt heavy, charged with an unknown energy, as if the city itself was watching them. Rimuru gazed at the ruins, his senses sharpening as he surveyed the area. But suddenly, his expression shifted, his senses picked up an unfamiliar presence lurking nearby. His eyes narrowed as he calmly stated, "Looks like we have company." Dainsleif immediately tensed, his own instincts confirming Rimuru's warning. "You're right," he muttered. Before anyone could react further, a sudden flash of light burst forth from the ruins of the upside-down city. The blinding brilliance engulfed the entire cave, rendering everyone momentarily sightless. Everyone, except Rimuru. Unlike the others, Rimuru wasn't dependent on normal vision. By sensing the flow of elemental energy, he could construct an image of his surroundings in his mind, mapping out every presence, every movement. In the midst of the chaos, a dark portal tore open in the air. From within the swirling abyss, an abyss herald emerged. The being dashed forward in an instant, its twin blades shimmering with abyssal energy, aimed directly at Dainsleif's throat. But before the blow could land, Rimuru intercepted the strike. Clang! Sparks flew as Rimuru's sword effortlessly halted the Abyss Herald's attack. The force of their clash sent a shockwave rippling through the cave, scattering dust and debris. As the blinding light faded, Ether, Paimon, and Dainsleif regained their vision, blinking rapidly to adjust. Their eyes widened when they saw Rimuru standing firm, his sword locked against the Abyss Herald's blade. Rimuru turned his head slightly and smirked. "Looks like you need to polish your skills a little." Dainsleif huffed, unimpressed. "HMPH. Whatever." But Rimuru's expression turned serious as he glanced toward the upside-down city. The contraption was beginning to stir, the abyss was starting something. "It looks like our friends up there are making their move," Rimuru noted. His eyes flickered toward Dainsleif. "How about you go handle them while I take care of this guy?" Dainsleif nodded. "Agreed. Traveler, let's go. We don't have much time." Ether exchanged a look with Rimuru before nodding. "Be careful." With that, Ether and Dainsleif turned and sprinted toward the contraption embedded within the ruins, leaving Rimuru alone with the Abyss Herald. The Herald chuckled darkly. "You're annoying, just as the princess mentioned." Rimuru raised an eyebrow. "Well, I can't disagree. Since I'm her big brother, it's my job to make sure she doesn't walk down a path that leads to destruction." The Abyss Herald's expression twisted in disgust. "Do you really think the princess holds any sort of brotherly love for you? You, who merely self-proclaimed to be her brother." Rimuru smirked. "Ether and I are connected by the soul corridor, that alone makes us brothers. And naturally, that makes Lumine my sister as well." The Abyss Herald's aura flared violently. "Do not dare to utter the princess's name with your filthy mouth." Enraged, the Abyss Herald lunged, its twin blades slashing at blinding speed. But Rimuru was faster. With precise movements, he parried each strike effortlessly. His sword danced between the Herald's attacks, each block sending sparks flying. The Herald gritted its teeth, struggling to land a single blow, while Rimuru counterattacked with fluid ease, pushing the Herald back. Between their rapid exchanges, Rimuru spoke, "How about a proposal?" The Abyss Herald faltered slightly but kept its guard up. "A proposal?" Rimuru's eyes gleamed as he continued to attack. "Yes. Relay this message to Lumine, I can remove the curse of Kyanria." The Abyss Herald's movements slowed for a fraction of a second. Rimuru pressed on. "If I regain my powers, I can free your people from their suffering. Instead of supporting the Abyss's war, why not help me achieve that?" His voice was calm but firm. "In exchange, I will guarantee the safety of the Kyanrian people and lift the curse that torments them." For a brief moment, silence hung between them. Then, the Abyss Herald laughed. A deep, mocking laughter. "You are delusional," the Herald sneered. "We do not seek mere salvation, we seek vengeance." His voice dripped with conviction. "We will not only save our people, but we will engulf the thrones of the sky in flames. This world's destiny is set in stone, the Abyss will prevail. The gods and the nations that serve them will perish for the sins they have committed." Rimuru sighed. "So my words fell on deaf ears, huh?" The Abyss Herald lunged once more. But this time, Rimuru's eyes turned cold. In a single, precise slash, his blade cut through the herald's body. Shulk! A deep gash tore through the herald's chest, splitting him in half. The Abyss Herald's body trembled as dark red particles began to consume him. His form disintegrated into a cloud of crimson mist, vanishing into the air. Rimuru watched as the remnants of abyssal energy dissipated. His expression was calm, but his gaze sharpened as he noted the color of the particles. Looks like this red color represents abyssal corruption, he mused aloud. In his mind, Ciel's voice echoed. Open black lens bracket highly likely, master. Close black lens bracket. Rimuru nodded. He turned his attention back toward the cave where the hilichurls lurked. They were clutching their heads in pain, their bodies trembling violently. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. They still haven't stopped the contraption. Without wasting another second, he spread his wings. A single flap of his wings sent him soaring into the sky, his body shooting toward the upside-down ruins like a streak of blue lightning. As Rimuru soared through the air toward the upside-down city, the scene before him came into clearer view. The once majestic ruins, suspended in defiance of gravity, pulsed ominously with abyssal energy. The air crackled with power, and an intense blinding light surged from the contraption embedded beneath the upside-down pool. Rimuru's sharp gaze quickly took in the situation. Atop the contraption, Halfdan's monstrous body lay sprawled out, its corrupted form writhing as if struggling against itself. Despite his monstrous state, it was clear that Halfdan was still fighting, desperately trying to halt the machine's progress, though his efforts were proving fruitless. Nearby, Dainsleif stood with his body tensed, his face contorted in pain. He clutched his head, struggling against some unseen force as abyssal whispers filled the air. And standing before them, chanting ominous incantations in an ancient, forgotten tongue, was an Abyss Lector. The creature's voice resonated with abyssal energy, fueling the growing pillar of light that stretched from the contraption to the upside-down pool above. The energy fluctuations were growing increasingly unstable. Rimuru's eyes narrowed. He knew exactly what needed to be done. Without hesitation, he extended his hand and created 4 clones, each one forming beside him in perfect synchronization. The clones immediately assumed meditative postures, their hands forming seals as they began channeling immense elemental energy into Rimuru. Meanwhile, Rimuru tightened his grip on his katana, the blade humming with power as he infused it with a colossal amount of elemental energy. A powerful golden blue aura erupted around him, crackling like lightning. The time to act was now. One of Rimuru's clones suddenly sprang into action, dashing forward in a blur of speed. With precision, he grabbed Halfdan's monstrous form, lifting him off the contraption and away from the abyssal mechanism. The instant Halfdan's body was removed, the intensity of the contraption's light output faltered slightly, but it was still active. The very next second, Rimuru moved. To those watching, it was as if he vanished in an instant, his speed far surpassing anything visible to the naked eye. He became a blur, streaking through the air like a bolt of lightning, heading directly for the contraption. In his hands, his katana now radiated with overwhelming energy, the sheer intensity of it distorting the very air around him. As he neared the contraption, his focus sharpened. His target, the small abyssal crystal embedded at the very top of the structure, was the core of the machine. If he destroyed it, the entire contraption would collapse. With perfect precision, Rimuru thrust his sword forward. Shi-ng. The moment the blade made contact with the crystal. Boom! A shockwave exploded outward, shaking the entire upside-down city. The crystal shattered in an instant, sending shards of abyssal energy scattering in all directions. The once blinding pillar of light flickered violently, before suddenly vanishing completely. Then, silence. The chaotic, deafening energy that had once filled the air was gone. The ruins, though still suspended, now felt eerily still. The only sound was the distant echoes of rubble settling. The contraption had been destroyed. Just as the dust began to settle, a dark portal opened nearby. From within, Aether and Paimon emerged. Paimon, still caught up in the heat of battle, was shouting excitedly in Aether's ear. "We took down 3 of them already. Now we just have 2. But before she could finish, Aether suddenly stopped mid-step, his golden eyes widening. "Look." He pointed toward the center of the ruins, toward the contraption that Rimuru had just destroyed. Paimon's eyes followed his gaze. The sight of the obliterated structure made her jaw drop. WWHAAAAAT. Paimon screeched. What happened? Did Rimuru just? Before they could process it further, an enraged voice echoed through the ruins. You fools! The Abyss Lector, now standing amidst the wreckage of the contraption, was seething with fury. His abyssal energy flared violently, his once calm demeanor shattered by anger. Do you have any idea what you've done? He roared, his voice echoing with a mixture of rage and disbelief. Rimuru, still hovering in the air, smirked as he casually rested his katana on his shoulder. Oh, nothing much. His tone was light, almost amused. Just putting a stop to your plans, for now. His eyes gleamed with a knowing look. The Abyss Lector's rage reached its peak as dark energy erupted from his body, causing the very air around him to distort. His abyssal power, fueled by his remaining clones, surged violently, forming a swirling storm of shadows and crimson streaks. I will not let you leave here alive. The Lector bellowed, his staff glowing with abyssal runes as he channeled his last remnants of power into a devastating attack. But before he could even release it, shing! A flash of silver-blue light cut through the air, so fast that the Abyss Lector had no time to react. His body froze in place. Then, cleanly split in half, his form disintegrated into a shower of red particles, scattering into the air just like the Abyss Herald before him. His final scream was cut short as he died. Rimuru, standing behind where the Lector had been, lowered his sword with a sigh. He barely even glanced at the fading abyssal remnants. Turning toward the group, Rimuru smirked. Looks like you were having quite a bit of trouble dealing with them. Dainsleif, still recovering from the bottle's strain, let out a deep breath. Because of that device, my abilities were restricted. You likely understand this better than anyone. Rimuru sighed, nodding. Yeah, I get it. But let's save this talk for later. We have someone we should thank first. At that moment, one of Rimuru's clones reappeared, carrying Halfdan's body in his arms. The once powerful knight of Kyanria, who had been cursed into a monstrous form, lay completely still. His fight was over. Dainsleif immediately stepped forward, kneeling beside him. His sharp gaze softened as he inspected Halfdan's face. There was no breath, no movement. Looks like he died, trying to stop the device, Rimuru remarked, his voice carrying a somber edge. Dane nodded. Indeed, he fought until the very end. Just as those words settled, a sudden golden light erupted from Halfdan's body. The radiant glow expanded, forcing everyone to take a step back as an ethereal figure emerged from the light. Slowly, its form solidified, revealing Halfdan's true soul, his original self, untainted by corruption. His eyes, now clear and full of emotion, locked onto Dainsleif. Apologies, Captain Dainsleif. Twilight soared. His voice, though ghostly, was filled with a mixture of regret and relief. Back then, I failed you. Failed to protect our people. Dainsleif took a deep breath, his usually cold and distant demeanor softening. He shook his head. No, Halfdan, you have done your duty faithfully. For 500 years, until this very day. I am proud of you all. Hearing those words, Halfdan smiled faintly, rubbing the back of his head, just like he once did in life. He then turned to Dainsleif once more, his eyes filled with hope. Kyanria, it didn't fall, did it? Not if you're still here. Silence filled the air. Everyone present, including Aether and Paimon, felt the weight of the moment. They all knew the truth. Dainsleif's expression remained calm, but the way his fingers curled slightly at his sides betrayed his emotions. Then, finally, he spoke. Yes, you are correct. Aether's eyes widened slightly. Paimon covered her mouth, unable to find any words. Halfdan let out a relieved sigh, his form beginning to flicker. Then, that's enough for me. With those final words, his soul slowly dissolved into golden particles, ascending into the sky before vanishing completely. Dainsleif stood still for a long moment, watching the last traces of Halfdan disappear. Then, in a whisper only he could hear, he murmured. No need to revive the homeland, huh? Breaking the solemn silence, Rimuru suddenly flew upward and hovered near the upside-down pool above them. He stretched out his hand, and with a simple motion, a small portion of the mystical water separated itself from the rest and floated toward him. With a flick of his wrist, Rimuru sent the sample of water into his personal storage space. Ciel's voice echoed in his mind. Open double-angle bracket understood. I will begin analyzing the composition of this mysterious liquid. Rimuru then descended back to the ground. Dainsleif, watching him, raised an eyebrow. You took some of that water. Rimuru shrugged. Nothing much. Just wanted to analyze what it actually is. Dainsleif sighed, clearly too tired to argue. Well, do whatever you want. I'm heading back. What about the rest of you? Paimon, still shaken from what they just witnessed, almost blurted out, we're going back too. But before she could finish, Rimuru cut in. We'll investigate further. Dainsleif narrowed his eyes slightly but eventually nodded. Then be careful. There are many unknown energies here, and what you encounter could be unpredictable. Ether and Paimon both gulped but nodded in agreement. Dainsleif turned, preparing to leave. Hey, Dane. Dainsleif stopped and turned his head slightly, just in time to catch a small glass bottle that Rimuru tossed to him. Dainsleif inspected the bottle. Inside was a clear liquid, but it had an odd shimmer to it, subtly different from normal water. What is this? Dane asked, his tone wary. Rimuru smirked. That's some of the pool water, but I made it drinkable. Dainsleif furrowed his brows. You, what? Paimon gasped. Wait, you purified that weird water. How? Rimuru grinned. I have my ways. Dainsleif stared at him for a moment, then let out a quiet chuckle. HMPH. Looks like I underestimated you, just a little. His gaze shifted back to the bottle. And what exactly does this do? Rimuru's expression turned serious. Drink it, and it'll ease your curse's corrosion, at least a little. Dainsleif's fingers tightened around the bottle. His curse. The mark of Kyanria's tragedy, the abyssal affliction that had plagued him for centuries. He didn't say anything for a moment. Then, with a quiet sigh, he pocketed the bottle. Fine, I'll take it. Rimuru then asked one last thing. Dane, did you find anything about Ivaraj? Dainsleif stopped mid-step. His shoulders tensed slightly. No. His voice was calm but held a sharp edge. Every time I asked about him, the abyss remained silent. Even when I followed them, they never spoke of him. It's as if they don't even know who he is. Rimuru's expression darkened. That in itself is concerning. Dainsleif nodded. I know that very well. But I will continue searching. If I find anything, I will get that information out of the abyss. One way or another. Rimuru watched as Dainsleif finally walked away, vanishing into the ruins. Ether, Paimon, and Rimuru stood in silence for a moment. As Ether turned toward Rimuru, his expression held a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Then, mind explaining. Paimon, floating beside Ether, immediately chimed in. Yeah, and also, why can't we go up? We just saved Halfdan, so why are we still stuck here? Rimuru shook his head and sighed. I think Ether is asking something different, Paimon. Huh, what do you mean? Paimon tilted her head, confused. Ether crossed his arms and nodded. You could have removed Dainsleif's curse, couldn't you? Paimon gasped in shock. Wait, he can. Rimuru nodded with a casual smile. Sure can. Ether's eyes narrowed slightly. Then why didn't you do it? I'm sure Dane wouldn't have refused if you had offered. Rimuru exhaled deeply, his expression turning more serious. The problem is, the space that is created for such interventions is limited. If I had used it on Dainsleif, it would have filled that space completely. Paimon blinked, struggling to process. Wait, what space? What are you talking about? Ether, already understanding the implication, pressed further. You mean, we wouldn't have been able to save someone else? Rimuru nodded. Exactly. That space is our only chance to save Rukkhadevata. Ether's expression shifted, his mind racing. Do you really think Rukkhadevata can help us? She sure can, Rimuru confirmed. From what I know, she is directly connected to Irminsul. Unlike Dainsleif, who saw the cataclysm from Kyanria's perspective, Rukkhadevata experienced it firsthand as a god. If anyone can tell us exactly what the heavenly principles did back then, it's her. Paimon, floating in deep thought, eventually nodded. Well, you're right, but isn't Dane important too? He also lived through the cataclysm, just from a different side. You're absolutely right, Rimuru admitted. But there's a key difference. He looked at Ether and Paimon, his expression solemn. Rukkhadevata doesn't have much time left. Ether stiffened. You mean, she's disappearing? Rimuru nodded. Her consciousness was already fading when I made contact with Irminsul. Even with my help, she might not be able to last much longer. But Dainsleif, he can survive for years even without my intervention. Paimon placed a hand on her chin, deep in thought. So, basically, if you had saved Dane, we wouldn't be able to save Rukkhadevata, and she might disappear forever. Exactly. Rimuru's tone was heavy. Dane's curse is bad, but he can endure it. Rukkhadevata, if we don't act now, she won't survive. Ether processed this for a moment, then slowly nodded. That makes sense. Paimon sighed. I guess we really don't have a choice then. Rimuru, sensing their concerns, smiled reassuringly. But if I ever get another chance to save someone like this, then Dane will be next on my list. Hearing that, Ether and Paimon both nodded in agreement. With the immediate discussion settled, Rimuru turned toward the deeper parts of the ruins. Well then, he said, adjusting his grip on his sword. Let's head deeper inside. Ether, momentarily taken aback, asked, but, where exactly? Rimuru glanced at him with a smirk. Do you remember when I mentioned that there's something like that, nail, in the chasm as well? Paimon's eyes widened as she recalled. Oh yeah, that huge thing in Dragonspine. But, wait, why are we going there? After everything we've seen, I really don't want to go anywhere near something that has Celestia's influence. Rimuru shrugged. Like it or not, that nail might hold important secrets about the heavenly principles. If we want to understand Celestia's true nature, we need as much information as possible. Ether frowned, but after a moment of thought, he sighed. You're right. The more we know, the better prepared we'll be. Rimuru then smirked again. And besides, it looks like we're not the only ones here. Paimon flinched. Wait, what? You mean, there are people here? Rimuru nodded. Ether's eyes narrowed. Who? Rimuru started listing them off. Many, actually. Yellen, Xiao, Ito, Kuki, Yanfei. As he named them, Paimon's face palmed in horror. Wait. That's bad. Didn't you say there are pocket spaces here where time flows differently? Rimuru nodded again, his expression serious. That's exactly why I'm worried. If they get caught in one, they might not even realize how much time has passed. Ether clenched his fists. Dainsleif and Xiao can handle themselves, but the others. Even though Yellen is strong and smart, if she gets trapped in all of this, I doubt she'll be able to escape alone. Rimuru nodded in agreement. That's why we need to stop them before they get into trouble. Ether and Paimon exchanged glances, then firmly nodded. All right, Ether said. Then let's hurry. Without wasting another second, the group rushed deeper into the abyss, knowing that whatever secrets lay ahead, they had to uncover them before it was too late. As Ether, Paimon, and Rimuru ventured deeper, they finally arrived at the Celestial Nail, an enormous structure eerily similar to the one at Dragonspine. However, unlike the frozen peak, this nail hovered ominously in the depths of the chasm, its celestial energy pulsating faintly. A strange atmosphere lingered in the air, as if time itself was distorted around it. The deeper they ventured, the more unnatural the surroundings felt. Rimuru took a step forward, his eyes narrowing as he examined the nail floating high above. Wait here, he said, glancing at Ether and Paimon. I want to check it properly. Ether nodded. Got it. Paimon, though nervous, floated beside Ether. Be careful, okay. That thing looks way too suspicious. Rimuru smiled slightly before he prepared to fly up, his body levitating as he gathered energy beneath his feet. However, just as he was about to ascend, a voice suddenly echoed from behind. What are you three doing here? The voice was feminine, confident, yet slightly wary. Rimuru immediately halted his movement and turned around, his senses alert. The voice was familiar. When he laid eyes on the figure standing nearby, he recognized her instantly, Yanfei. Her red horns and flowing robe swayed slightly as she approached, her legal scroll strapped to her back. Though usually cheerful, her sharp gaze indicated that she wasn't here for casual conversation. Rimuru relaxed slightly but still remained on guard. Nothing much. Just checking a few things. Yanfei raised an eyebrow. That's so. Paimon tilted her head. Wait, what about you? What are you doing here? Yanfei crossed her arms. I'm here because of a will. Ether blinked. A will? Yanfei nodded. Yes, I found a will written inside a book, and according to it, the person who left it behind was someone of great importance. Apparently, they lost a special device deep inside the chasm, and in their final moments, they expressed a strong desire to retrieve it. Rimuru narrowed his eyes. So, you're searching for that device. Exactly, Yanfei confirmed. Rimuru sighed. I see, that is important, but even so, I'd advise you not to go any deeper. His expression hardened. This place isn't safe for anyone to wander around in. Yanfei, however, stood her ground. I understand your concern, but I need to find that device. Just as Rimuru was about to respond, another feminine voice interrupted from the shadows. Oh, so you're saying it's safe for you to wander around but not us? Rimuru's sharp hearing caught the tone immediately. Without turning his head, he sighed. Yes, indeed. That's why I'm advising all of you to leave. Then, in a swift motion, he snapped his gaze toward a large stone nearby, where a very obvious white-haired man was peeking out. Rimuru pointed directly at him. And I'm talking to you too, Ito. Gah! Ito let out a small yelp and jumped in surprise, clearly not expecting to be caught. After a moment, he let out an awkward laugh and scratched the back of his head. Huh. Well, I mean, you see. Behind him, Kuki Shinobu sighed in pure exhaustion, pinching the bridge of her nose. She muttered under her breath before stepping forward. Please, forgive him. Ito turned to her, offended. Hey, what are you apologizing for? It's not like I did anything wrong. At that moment, another figure suddenly leapt down from above, landing gracefully beside them. It was Yellen. She straightened her sleeves and smirked. Well then, mind explaining who you are? Her piercing gaze fell on Ito, clearly unimpressed. Ito blinked. What? Hey, lady, isn't it good manners to introduce yourself before asking someone else for their name? Kuki's eye twitched. Boss, shut up. She immediately bowed her head toward Yellen. I sincerely apologize on his behalf. Yellen chuckled slightly. Whatever. I just hope you two will leave the chasm immediately. Ito scoffed. Huh. And who are you to tell me what to do? Boss, Kuki sighed, just listen to her. Rimuru, watching the growing argument, clapped his hands once to get everyone's attention. All right, enough. His voice was calm yet commanding, leaving no room for argument. I'll make this simple. He glanced at each of them, his gaze sharp. Everyone here is leaving, except for me, Paimon, and the traveler. Yanfei frowned. Wait, what? You're ordering us to leave? Rimuru nodded firmly. Yes. This place isn't safe. I understand you need to find that magical device, but I'm not suggesting you leave, I'm telling you to. If I find the device, I'll personally deliver it to you. Yanfei bit her lip, clearly reluctant, but she could see Rimuru wasn't negotiating. Rimuru then turned toward Ito and Kuki. I suppose you two get what you need to do. Kuki immediately nodded, understanding the severity of the situation. Yes, we'll leave. Ito, however, crossed his arms stubbornly. Hey, we're friends, right? So why are you kicking us out? Rimuru sighed. Exactly because we're friends. He locked eyes with Ito. That's why I don't want any of you getting hurt. Ito flinched at the sincerity in Rimuru's voice. He grumbled but didn't argue further. Finally, Rimuru turned to Yellen. She smirked slightly. And I suppose you're saying you can protect yourself and your companions from whatever's inside. Rimuru nodded confidently. Yes, I can. Yellen narrowed her eyes. Then, mind explaining how? Rimuru's smirk widened. That's a secret. He tilted his head. But I'll tell you, if you tell me why you're here. Yellen's expression darkened slightly. If I told you, I'd have to kill everyone here. Rimuru sighed dramatically. Kids these days. Yellen raised an eyebrow. Kids. Rimuru shrugged. Anyway, the point is clear. If you all stay here, I can't guarantee everyone's safety. Yellen narrowed her eyes, as if studying Rimuru's every move. You really think you know this place better than I do? Rimuru smirked again. Oh, I know I do. His tone held complete confidence. That's why I'm warning you all to leave. I'll decide what's safe and what isn't. Then, I'll let you know when it's okay to come back. As Rimuru and Yellen argued, Yanfei quietly approached Ether and Paimon. Hey, she whispered. Is Rimuru okay? He seems really adamant about this. Ether nodded. Yeah, given the circumstances, I think he's right. Paimon floated beside him and grinned. And don't worry. Hundreds of his clones have already mapped out the entire chasm. I don't think anyone in the world knows it better than him. Yanfei's eyes widened slightly. Hundreds of clones. Ether and Paimon just smiled knowingly as Rimuru and Yellen continued their tense discussion. As Rimuru and Yellen continued their argument about the dangers of the chasm, the ground beneath them suddenly trembled. A deep rumble echoed through the cavern, causing dust and small rocks to fall from above. Before anyone could react, the floor cracked and shattered beneath their feet, sending everyone plummeting into the darkness below. Paimon screamed as they fell, while Yanfei and Kuki braced themselves for impact. Ito, on the other hand, let out a loud, woohoo. As if he were enjoying a wild ride. Yellen and Ether, despite being taken by surprise, managed to stay composed, trying to grab onto something but failing. However, before they could hit the ground, Rimuru acted instantly. With a single thought, he sprouted wings and dove down at an incredible speed, reaching below them in an instant. Then, his body shifted, he transformed into his slime form, expanding to create a large, elastic net beneath everyone. Gah! Ito grunted as he landed first, followed by the others. The slime net cushioned their fall perfectly, preventing any injuries. As soon as everyone was safely on the ground, Rimuru quickly reverted back to his human form, dusting himself off. He let out a sigh. Well, that was close. Ether and Paimon, still recovering from the shock, nodded in agreement. Before Rimuru could say anything else, a pair of strong arms suddenly wrapped around him from behind in a tight bear hug. Oh yeah, you saved all of us. That's why you're the best compadre. Ito cheered, squeezing Rimuru with all his strength. Rimuru sighed again, feeling the Ona's overwhelming strength. Yeah, you can let go now. As Ito finally released him, Rimuru glanced upward. The hole they had fallen through was far above them, and no clear way back up could be seen. The surrounding walls of the cave were steep and jagged, covered in strange glowing crystals. Looks like we fell quite deep, he muttered. Everyone followed his gaze and nodded. Don't worry, Rimuru assured them. I'll take us back up. However, just as he was about to do so, Yanfei spoke up. Wait, now that we're down here, why don't we just take a look around? We might be able to find the device I'm searching for. Rimuru narrowed his eyes. You really want to find that device, don't you? Yanfei nodded determinedly. Rimuru sighed before finally relenting. All right, but if I sense anything dangerous, I'm sending all of you up immediately. Yanfei smiled and nodded. Ito and Kuki also agreed, though Kuki still seemed annoyed at Ito's recklessness. Rimuru then turned his attention to Yellen. She wasn't even listening to their conversation anymore, she was already inspecting the cave, observing the crystals and the strange aura lingering in the air. TCH. She's just doing her own thing, Rimuru muttered before shaking his head. Well, let's move on. As the group ventured deeper, the cave became even darker and more eerie. The glow of the crystals cast ghostly shadows on the walls, and the air grew colder. A faint, ominous hum resonated from deeper within. And then, they saw it. A portal. It pulsed with chaotic energy, swirling in shades of violet and deep blue. Unlike normal teleport waypoints or domain entrances, this portal exuded an unstable presence. Rimuru narrowed his eyes and immediately realized what it was. Well, looks like our journey ends here, he said. This portal is dangerous. You all need to go back. Huh, why? Ito asked, confused. Rimuru turned to him seriously. This portal connects to a different dimension, a chaotic one. If you enter, you'll be trapped inside. Not even the Adepti would be able to escape easily, let alone normal people like you. Entering this is the same as walking toward your own death. As he finished speaking, Rimuru's senses flared. Someone was approaching. Without hesitation, he drew his katana and turned toward the direction of the disturbance. Someone's here. The others immediately got ready for a fight. Yanfei prepared her catalyst, Kuki summoned her electro blade, and Yellen reached for her dice. Then, a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. What are you all doing here? A calm, yet firm voice asked. It was Xiao. Rimuru lowered his katana slightly and answered casually. Nothing much, just exploring a little. Xiao's expression remained cold. You shouldn't be here. I urge you all to leave. Before anyone could respond, Xiao vanished in an instant. Rimuru sighed. Well, I think you all heard him clearly, right? Even he agrees that you shouldn't be here. But then, something was wrong. He looked around. Everyone was there, except for... Wait, where's Ito? Everyone's eyes widened as they quickly scanned the area. Then, they spotted him, standing right in front of the portal. Look, it's not that dangerous as you made it out to be. Ito grinned as he took a step closer. Boss, get away from there, Kuki shouted, but it was too late. With a reckless laugh, Ito stepped forward and entered the portal. Everything froze for a moment. And then, damn it, Rimuru cursed. Without hesitation, he grabbed Ether and Paimon's hands and ran straight toward the portal. Don't even think about coming near the portal, he ordered the others before jumping in. Kuki clenched her fists. Like hell I'm leaving him, she yelled before diving in after them. Yanfei and Yellen exchanged glances. Then, they both smirked. Well, no point in staying behind now. Yanfei grinned. Agreed. Yellen nodded. And with that, the two of them also leapt into the portal. Completely unaware of the horrors that awaited them on the other side.